Hey guys, welcome to Star Wars Timeline. Today's character highlight is about one of my favorite female characters in Star Wars franchise. Since I'm playing the KOTOR Knights of the Old Republic video game right now, and you could check out my playthroughs on the channel, I decided to go and highlight Bastila Shan as one of my favorites. We're going to talk about her personal history, check out a little bit of her background, discuss her personality traits, her Jedi powers, as well as I will give you my impression of this character and what I hope to see in the future. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Let's start with her biography and give you just a little scoop of what her character is like. So she's a Jedi Knight who is first introduced in a popular BioWare RPG video game, Knights of the Old Republic, which came out way back in 2003 on the Xbox and the PC. And that was the first time I encountered her. She was one of the playable party members and one of the central figures in that story. She hails from the planet called Talvaron, and she has a family of treasure hunters. And because her parents didn't want that kind of lifestyle for her, she was actually given to the Jedi Order at a very early age. Now, in the days of the Old Republic, there were two fallen Jedi Knights, Darth Revan and Darth Malak, who waged a war against the Mandalorian and Neo-Crusader wars. And Bastila was actually part of the strike team who recaptures the Revan. He's mortally wounded, and she brings him back to the Jedi Council. Now, she plays a part in wiping Revan's memories, and they give him a new identity as this Old Republic soldier, and he has no recollection of his former Jedi life. And they do it in order to find this ancient weapon, the Rakatan space station called the Star Forge. Bastila turns to the dark side actually at one point in the story, and she's captured by Revan's former student, Darth Malak. He tempts her, he turns her to the dark side, and it was Revan, actually, the very same one who she brings from the brink. He's the one who confronts her and is able to bring her back to the good side because of their very unusual relationship, something that the Jedi Order doesn't perpetuate, that's something they don't want to happen. And yet, Revan and Bastila are married by the end of the story because they believe that their emotions and strong love and compassion for each other are something to be celebrated, and actually what gives Jedi their strength, and if it's used properly, it's not something that they should shy away from. Anyway, on that base principles, they part their ways from the Jedi Order, and actually Bastila Shan and Revan, they're married, and they actually have offspring as well. Obviously, Revan is viewed as a heretic by the Jedi. They don't want anything to do with him. Same with Bastila Shan. And Revan goes into unknown regions of space, which, some other events happen to him. But this video is about Bastila, so let's focus on her. She actually has a greater legacy. Post her original story, we see her descendants. Her family line is described in the Knights of the Old Republic video game, the MMORPG, which you could go and actually play now. Bastila Shan is one of her descendants, and she becomes the Grand Master of the Jedi Order during the times of the Old Republic. Anyway, that's just a very small, kind of like narrow view of her biography. It's obviously much deeper. It transpires across two video games. There's comics books as well. But I just wanted to give you an idea of what she's like as a character. And if you want to experience more, I would strongly advise you play the Knights of the Republic video game. It's on Steam, all these other platforms you could check out. Now, let's take a look at Bastila's personality. What was she like as a person? We know that from a very early age, Bastila is very gifted. She's like the protege, and she is very different from her peers in terms of her personality. She feels very overconfident. She's very impulsive. She has all these characteristics which are sort of unbecoming of the Jedi. And she's a very rigid and strict views on the Jedi teachings, and she goes out of her way to follow every instruction to the letter. And sometimes she would quarrel even with the Jedi Masters on the Jedi Council and tell them, no, but this is what the Jedi Code states, and this is what we must do. That's how much of a believer she was in earlier parts of her life. And also because of her naturally strong connection to the Force, she acted very arrogantly, and she believed for some reason, she put herself on this pedestal that she's destined for some kind of greatness, which she actually is, and partially her strong emotions and feelings do her credit because she does something very special in the storyline. And that was kind of interesting to see that she followed this very non-traditional pathway. Um, and after her fall to the dark side and her redemption, both Bastila and her husband Revan, they part from the Jedi Council because their ideologies just go separate ways. They no longer believe that the Jedi should be celibate, that they should not form attachments in their lifetimes, that it could lead only tragedy and darkness. She believes in the positive emotions that all human beings and all people should experience, like love and happiness and compassion for other people. And it actually makes Jedi more powerful, and it helps them overcome the dark side, which actually proves her case because it's those powerful emotions like love which help her bring her beloved from the dark side. So if we were to describe Bastila, there is no former gray Jedi order. It's something that fans kind of like coined that term, and it's mostly some of the Jedi who are more like mavericks, like Qui-Gon Jinn or Quinlan Vos, that we as fans like to describe as the gray Jedi, who basically embrace both sides and they view a very lead a very balanced lifestyle. That's what Bastila is. She's basically a gray Jedi. Now let's talk about her powers. As I mentioned, from the early age, Bastila demonstrates this very strong attunement to the Force, and she has a rare gift of the battle meditation. It's something that very few Jedi possess, even on the Council. Now, this battle meditation allows her to rally all the troops. She can like stretch her mind, her awareness to all of the troops, whether they are Jedi or non-Jedi. They could be regular Republic troopers. And she kind of bolsters their resolve and gives them hope and rallies them emotionally and spiritually as well through the Force. And it greatly alters the outcome of any battle if the battle meditation Jedi is present on a combat zone. She also has a very strong sense. She's able to understand what's happening in her surroundings, and she's able to sense the presence of Revan's apprentice, Darth Malak, very early on, and she's able to react quickly. Now, for a brief moment, Bastila turns to the dark side as well, and she also exhibits very strong dark force skills, which are forbidden, obviously, by the Jedi. She has a force choke, force lightning, and she drains life. And of course, some of these are a little bit more out there because they had to tailor a video game premise. These are all the powers that, she can experience and use, and a player as well. They had to make it interesting, and it's fun to see how we go from Star Wars movies and books and translate into video game, how some of these powers have like a practical combat use was pretty fun and interesting to watch. And let's not forget, Bastila is a very skilled lightsaber duelist. She has that yellow lightsaber that she fights on with the video game. She has that very signature art styles that we see on the cover of the Knight of Old Republic video game. We see later on in her artwork. And after certain things happen with Revan, her husband, she changes her lightsaber to a dual blade. She has a double-sided yellow lightsaber. What was my impression of Bastila Shan when I first experienced her, which was obviously back in 2003. I was a huge gamer, as I still am. I was very hyped for this video game. And she instantly became one of my favorite characters in that game. She was very well rendered. She had like a very prominent and well described personality, and she had a very powerful story. I would also describe it something like Romeo and Juliet in space. Romeo comes from one clan and Juliet from another, and these two families are quarreling, and they will do everything to prevent these young lovers from having a happy life. That's sort of kind of what happens between Bastila and Revan, because on one side there is the dark side that always tempts them, and on the other side there are the Jedi. Jedi Council is very strict with its rules. It doesn't allow them to have bonds and form a family, and that's what they also had to part ways. And obviously also the story, while has moments of happiness, ends up pretty tragically as well. The forbidden love. Also, I enjoyed that she wasn't this straight as an arrow kind of Jedi. She had very powerful emotions. She experiences love and compassion, and she's able to bring Revan from the dark side and she always treads this balance between the good and the bad side. And very often in the video game, in the story, the choices that you're making as a player are not easy ones. There's not a simple answer like, well, if I do this, I will become the good guy. And I always felt that it makes up for a more interesting story, whether it's a video game or a novel or a movie. You don't want to follow a character who is like a Superman, who is untouchable. Their principles are incorruptible. They're just there, and they always follow the good path, and they always prevail. That's not what happens with Bastila. She experiences a lot of hardship, a lot of heartbreak, and she learns and grows as a person along the way, not just as a Jedi, but as a human being. And I think that's the first aspect that I could personally relate to. It's not, Jedi are something that we obviously can't have here. It's an idealized magical sorcerer / knight in space, but it's the human qualities that we identify with and I personally could relate to. And last but not least, I really enjoyed her very striking appearance. BioWare in its early 2000s, late 90s was on top of its game creating RPG games. And they had these wonderful character designers, which you would see like a sketch on an art piece of a character before the game's release. And it kind of got your imagination going. It's like, oh, I want to experience what this character is like. And she looked really, really beautiful. It's a simple but fun design with very striking and visually appealing color schemes. And I also thought that she was wonderfully performed by Jennifer Hale, a Canadian voice actress who has a score of credits in video game industry. And I felt that she projected this regal Jedi confidence. And she also had moments with Bastila where she's very, very vulnerable. And when her guard, comes down, she's insecure and she doesn't know how to proceed. And there's a moment of darkness in her. And once again, Jennifer Hale, I felt, did a wonderful with this character. And that's why she became so interesting. Not only she's well written, she looks interesting in the game, she also has a very powerful voice behind her. Now, for the last of this segment of this character highlight, what are my hopes for the future? Guys, since the acquisition from Disney in 2015, we started the reboot, relaunch of Star Wars canon, and it looks like the Knights of the Old Republic video games, including the Old Republic, are so popular to this day. Now we're getting the remake, we're getting the original video game remaster coming out on Switch. It looks like Disney and Lucasfilm are not crossing it out. I mean, that's not what they did with the old Legends. They just put them on the side here and they said, well, let us do another timeline and we start off a new canon. Well, here we have something that's a part of an old canon. It's not going anywhere because it's still making huge money. There's huge demand and popularity about it. And I strongly believe when the game, the KOTOR remake will be coming out, they will officially canonize it and say, well, let's look at that ancient history of the Jedi. Let's make it canon because the fans just love it too much and they're not willing to let it go. So what I hopefully wish to see with Bastila is, I hope in the Knights of the Old Republic remake, which is coming out on PS5 first and then other consoles as well, I hope they expand her role. They give her more character customization. We get to put different outfits on her, maybe different hairstyles. But I also hope what they do is as a huge, huge surprise. This is a great opportunity to experience the story from her perspective, because I would argue she is also as much of a main character in that game as Revan himself. Spoiler alert, the character that you play yourself, Revan. What if they have an interesting unlock at the end of the game where you actually get an added campaign and you play the entire story events from her perspective? When she's abducted on Tyrus planet, and later on when she turns to the dark side, you as a player get to experience that stuff. That would be really awesome. What I also love to see is, hopefully, if Knights of the Old Republic becomes even more popular than it is now, maybe we'll see some sort of live action and Bastila will become one of the lead characters in that show. Or maybe even an animated show. I don't mind that as well. As long as the stories are cool, I really don't have a preference there. And I would obviously love to see her come back if they do Star Wars comic books and adult novels. If they continue that timeline, I really, really hope that she becomes more prominent, more present, and even have her own comic or novel spin-off. That would be really cool to see. And at the end, I gotta say that in general, if this doesn't happen, if KOTOR doesn't become canon and we're not gonna see Bastila in this present timeline, I want to see more characters like her. I want to see more Jedi who are treading between the dark and the light, who are the questions in life are always hard for them and they have to struggle a lot and grow as individuals, sort of like her descendant in the online RPG, the MMO Knights of the Old Republic, Bastila Shan. Something like that. Give me like a descendant, name drop. You know, you could have a canon book or a canon video game, and the character's last name could be Shan as a reference to Bastila Shan from the original games. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this highlight. Bastila Shan is definitely one of my favorite female Jedi, one of my favorite characters in video games, and I think all of you guys should experience it. Don't wait for until the time they do a remake. Go and play the old game. It's still wonderful. I'm actually, as a matter of fact, playing it. Shameless plug. If you want to see me play the Old Republic game, I'm starting with part 1. I'm going to go into part 2, and I'll actually will touch the MMO, which I haven't for a very, very long time. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Please consider supporting my channel. Hit subscribe, hit that bell button so you see my future character highlights, and I'll see you next time.